Okay, good morning everybody. Michael Whiteside from MIFAB. We are here to talk about wall hydrants. And I am using the red MPB 2012 price book as a guide. Let's turn to page number 247. And we are going to talk about the main types of non-freeze wall hydrants. This is the MHY 10 series. And this comes in different lengths. And the reason why this comes in different lengths is relative to the thickness of the wall. The whole idea with a non-freeze wall hydrant is that we have the face of the hydrant sticking out from the wall or proud from the wall, exposed from the wall. And then we have the connection point, which is here at the back, inside the warm wall so that it doesn't freeze. That's why it's called a non-freeze. We have some unique features here. One is that we have a swivel connection. This is a solder or sweat by male threaded connection. And this can be positioned to any point so that the contractor can connect his incoming water supply to our swivel inlet. Prior to this invention, hydrants had a connection in the back end of the product. And the issue with that is often water is not coming in like this, it's coming up from the bottom or from the top. So having a swivel, the contractor can easily position this to meet the incoming water supply. And also with this swivel, there's no need to order a solder 90 fitting or solder a 90 fitting onto the end of this because we have a double O-ring seal here that gives us a watertight seal. If this is not desired, then this elbow piece can be removed. We have Allen key screws here. This can be removed, put aside, and then there is a half-inch solder connection in the back end of this to connect the water in directly horizontally if required. When we talk about the type of, or the length of hydrant needed, let's look at page 247. The top right-hand corner, page 247, there's a detail, a cross-section detail. We have two key dimensions there. One is 3.5 inches. 3.5 inches is the dimension from this point to the back. So that's our whole connection piece. The other dimension is referred to the wall thickness. And this is the most critical dimension. The wall thickness is always from this point to the back of the faceplate. And often hydrants are ordered by the wall thickness dimension, not the overall length, but the wall thickness. And this dimension is going to vary from 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 24, and so on. From this point to the back of here, that's always the wall thickness because we're considering that we need to have some room, this piece here, to get into the warm room behind the wall, into the heated space. This is where the plunger is. When somebody takes a key and puts it into the hexagon connection and turns it, they either open it like I'm doing now, and when I open this, what's happening is there's a brass rod that goes all the way to here with a plunger on the end of it. And when I'm opening the connection with the key, that plunger is moving forward and allowing the water to drain down. When I close the plunger, then the plunger is sealed against here. This is where the water comes out. We have a vacuum breaker, an ASSC 1011 approved vacuum breaker. So when I open the hydrant, the plunger is pulled forward. We have water that's now coming, and it's going to go along this passageway, and it's going to come out through the male threaded hose connection. This is where the garden hose or other hose would be affixed to for the water to come out. And then there's a vacuum breaker there to ensure that if the hose is left in a pail with contaminated water, we don't have that contaminated water coming back into the water supply. That's the purpose of the vacuum breaker. So back to the length of the hydrant. The reason why we want this inside the warm area is so that this water supply, the water is just kind of like a faucet. The water supply is always going to be here, resting against that plunger, ready to run as soon as we open up the connection here. So because the water is always there, we always want it warm. Otherwise it's going to freeze and it'll burst. So the MHY 10 series that we have on page 247, which is this, is considered a non-freeze hydrant, so it won't freeze. Again, as long as this is in the warm wall. And that's why we need to order the right length to get it into the wall. We have 3 series of MHY10 on page 247 at the top. We have MHY10, we have MHY15, and we have MHY16. And the reason why we have 3 models there is because our competition has 3 different versions of this same hydrant. We created one version that has the best attributes of all 3 and put it into the MHY10. But then for pricing purposes, we created a 15 and a 16 series priced to match our competition. So we have one product that is the best in features of all 3, priced appropriately to where our competition's models are. If you look in the cross-reference, you'll notice against the other brands that we have a cross-reference to those 3 different models, the 10, the 15, or the 16. At the bottom of page 247, we have the MHY 20 to 26. That's simply this same hydrant, the MHY 10, and all we're doing is we're adding the hydrant box. So when we add a box to the 10, we get a 20. And one of our advantages is that the box can be shipped separately from the hydrant, and these can be mated or put together here or at the customer or on the job site. The box has a screw on the back of it, and you'll notice there is a recess at the top and the bottom so that we can grip. Here's the other, actually there's 2 screws. Here's the other screw here. So we can actually grip the head of the hydrant when it's in the box. And we would open the box using the same key that we're using in the hydrant. And you have to turn it a few times. It's a very good, solid, positive lock. That would be open. We would loosen these Allen key screws. We would put our hydrant in like so, and then we would fasten. We would tighten that screw down, and we would tighten the other screw down into that recess to lock that hydrant in place. Now we have an MHY-20. Now the length is going to change. So if we look at the book on page 247, about halfway on the right hand side, you'll notice that the box thickness is 1.5 inches. The wall thickness, we still go from the back of the box, so the wall thickness is going to be from this point, the back of the box, to here. And we basically add 2 inches, even though this is 1.5 inches, it's a nominal 1.5 inches. So if we have an 8-inch hydrant, an MHY-10-8, we would say when you add the box, you would use a 6-inch hydrant to make an MHY-20-8. You always add 2 inches to this overall length from a 1000 or an MHY-10 to get to a 20 or a 2000. That's why you'll see the difference if you look at the models. The first one at the top for MHY-10 is 4, 6, and 8. Then the bottom left corner on page 1 of 247, it's MHY-20-6-8. So the 4 becomes a 6, the 6 becomes an 8, the 8 becomes a 10, and so on. That's the logic on the length. Some of the common options with hydrants are going to be a 1-inch hose connection. So instead of a 3/4 male thread hose connection like we have here, we have an adapter that that's female by male. Female to go over this male thread, and then male to be 1 inch. That's our 1-inch hose connection. So if somebody says, a 3/4 inch size is not right, I need a 1-inch connection, we can do that. Another common option is going to be a hydrant repair kit, which I think we have right there. Okay, the MHY CIA complete internal assembly dash 18 because it's 18 inches long, dash A. This is our A model, which is a universal model. This is the plunger. This is the plunger that I was talking about that is at the back end of this hydrant. So this rod, this very rod, cut to this length is what is actually inside of here. There's your O-ring, there's the rubber neoprene seal that's sealing at the back end of this connection. And then what we have up here is the worm stem. So this here is the connection that is what we see right here. This is where the key goes on so that we can open or close the hydrant. So we're either pushing it in or pulling it back. This is a universal repair kit because we have little guide markers every 2 inches for an installer to cut either to a 16-inch, 12-inch, 10-inch, 14, 8, whatever. And then there's a lock nut here, so this will be loosened. This can be removed and then put back on after we cut the rod to the desired length. And then inside this kit, we have another version of the worm stem. This is from a previous generation of HY1000, MHY10 hydrants that we made. So in the event, and it's often very difficult when you have one of these installed in the field to know, looking at this, which version, which generation this is. So regardless of whether it's the new generation, which is this product, or the old generation that doesn't have the swivel, the same repair kit will work both generations because either this is the worm stem needed, which is the new generation, or this is the old generation here. Also, the plunger could be different. This is the new plunger, this is the old plunger. Regardless of which generation they have, either plunger can be fixed onto this rod so that we can get the appropriate seal into the back end of the hydrant. And then along with that, we provide Loctite so that when we cut this rod and we put this back on, we can Loctite it on. Because after constant opening and turning, we don't want the plunger to come loose from the all-threaded rod. We want that to be tight. That's why we have that lock nut right there. Okay, I'm going to turn to page 248 and talk about modern climate wall hydrants. The MHY30 is the first one, which is this product here. It's called moderate climate because it's used in areas where we do not have freezing conditions. In climates where we have freezing conditions, we always want to go with the MHY10 because we want the plunger to be in the warm room. That's why these come in different lengths. The MHY30, and let's also look at the 50 on page 250. The MHY30 and 50 are very similar products. The only difference between the two is the fact that one has a swivel connection and one doesn't. Otherwise, they do exactly the same thing. The face is exactly the same. It's really the same product except for the connection method at the back. Most people prefer the MHY50 because it has the swivel connection again with a double O-ring seal, so the contractor can position this to meet the water wherever it may be coming from. There are other people, more traditional, that say, no, I'm used to not having that swivel, I'd rather have the straight back connection. So we offer a female threaded by male threaded inlet connection that's straight back. They both meet the ASSE 1011 standard listed with IAPO. They can also be used with the same box. This is our MHY-10 or HY1500- box. The same hydrant will go in there just like the MHY-10, and we can lock it in place with the same screws. So applications for an MHY-30 or 50 are going to be inside of buildings where we're already inside of the building. We're not exposed to the elements outside, or in warm climates like Florida, Arizona, where we know, not Flagstaff where it's going to be colder, but in areas, southern Arizona, where we're not going to get the freezing conditions. southern parts of Texas. That's where California, southern parts of California, that's where this product is typically sold. And one of the big issues that people are looking for is the depth. So when we have a hydrant in a box, one of the key dimensions that a lot of contractors have is from the back of this hydrant to the back of the hydrant box to be less than 4 inches, because in moderate climate areas in Phoenix, in California, Texas, we get into stucco and we get into shallow walls. Because it's warmer climates, we don't need the big block walls that we see here in Chicago or in northern climates. The walls tend to be thicker. We don't need as much insulation capability. So it's critical that, again, from the back of the hydrant to the back of the box be less than 4 inches. And you can see on page 250 at the bottom, the overall depth of our MHY 55. The MHY 55 is this. The box and the hydrant is 3 and 15/16. It's just less than 4 inches. So that's a big installation advantage for a lot of contractors, for this to be very, very compact. The reason why some people would use a box is, rather than having the hydrant exposed to perhaps vandalism or people tampering with it, is to have it protected. So we have a positive lock that needs to be threaded in. We can provide a cylinder key lock with this, but this would be the finish versus seeing the actual faceplate with the hose connection and the key operating term. So most public buildings, nice buildings, the architect, the owners will want something that is more visually appealing, and that's why they would get into a hydrant box. One of our advantages with our box is this drip lip. So we've designed this lip. As the hydrant is turned on and off, you tend to get water spitting or dribbling out of the hose connection. So the water will come into this area at the bottom, and the drip lip is designed to collect the water and drip the water away from the wall. Oftentimes we've seen hydrant boxes or hydrants themselves where water has stained the wall directly underneath the hydrant, and that can be avoided by using our hydrant box that has the drip lip built in. It's one of our unique features to provide a more aesthetic finish for the owner of the building. On page 249, we have a hot and cold hydrant. If you could please pass me that big box there. A commercial hot and cold hydrant. And the application here is a restaurant, a kitchen, a washdown area where we have hot, it's cast in place. Hot is this connection, cold is this connection. The water is going to come out here. So you have inside of this, you have got 2 plungers, except instead of 1 we have 2. So repair kits for these typically need to have 2 of these, 2 of the repair kits. The same key will operate the studs to turn the water on, turn the water off. The application here is going to be, we don't want typically potable or cold water coming out of the plumbing line to water bushes or to provide water supply for cleaning. We want to have hot water, not all hot water, but mixed in with some cold, so that we can clean a garage, we can clean a kitchen spill, we can use that water source for typically a cleaning or maintenance application. This also is provided with a box, so we can enclose this whole front piece into an enclosed box, and that's our HY 9500 -1 nickel bronze box. And you can see on page 249 that we also talk about the wall thickness. The 2 7/8 dimension is from here to the back of the tailpiece, and we're soldered by male thread here. Then the wall thickness, it's actually a typo on page 249 of the red book. The wall thickness should be from here this point, the back end of the chrome head, not here, back end of the chrome head, all the way to here. That's the wall thickness. So that's how we measure whether these are going to be 8 inches, 10 inches, 12 inches, whatever. But the same repair kit can be used for this, as 2 of them, as well as the 1000s. We have a different repair kit for the 3000 and the 5000. It's obviously a shorter version of this to work with those 2 models. What you'll find with most of our hydrants is we go up a numerical 5 when we go from the hydrant without a box to a hydrant with a box. So for example, the page 248, top MHY 30 at the bottom of 248, MHY 35, because it's one's with the box, one's without. Same on 249 for the 40 and the 45. Then on page 250, the MHY 50 and 55, the 50 without the box, 55 with the box. On page 251, we illustrate our standard, our universal hydrant box. That will take the MHY 10, the 30, and the 50. The 40 is going to have a bigger box because it's a dual hot and cold. We make this in nickel bronze, in stainless steel. We can chrome plate it. We can provide a cylinder key lock as well. Increasingly though, if you look on the top right corner of page 251, customers are asking us to have a round back to this box. The reason for that is there's tilt-up wall construction, and they typically find it easier to core drill. So they'll take a round drill, very much like you would cut a hole into the door before you put your handle in. On a bigger scale, they'll core drill through the concrete precast tilt-up wall, and then you can imagine trying to fit a rectangular box into the round hole is awkward. So we have a solution, which is the MHY-3-RB round back, which is a fabricated stainless steel round back to go into that hole, and we make that 5 7/8, that round hole and back, so it can go into a 6-inch core drill. And then into that box can go the family of the 1000, the 3000, or the 5000 hydrants. Is the MHY 58. This is a roof hydrant. The application is we're on, obviously, the top of a building. It could be a patio. We may have vegetation up there, plants, trees, shrubs, and so on, and we need a water supply to maintain watering the vegetation. This is made with a clamp ring, so the waterproof flashing would come along this flange. We would loosen the bolts of the clamp ring, then secure the clamp ring to the flange so that we have waterproofing in place to prevent leaks from going down below. We have a handle on top with a hose connection. There's no vacuum breaker there, but we can add one in so we don't have the risk of water going back. And then we have a pump action handle with typically a bucket. There's a little notch here to hold a bucket, and then water can go into the bucket, or we can affix a hose to that and water from there. And then we have a connection on the bottom to meet the incoming water supply with the drain port. The reason for the drain port is when we close the hydrant from the top, when it's sealed, the plunger will go just below that, and any water that's in this area will drain out, so it's not captured in there and it doesn't freeze. Because if it's captured in there and we're in a cold climate, that can freeze and can crack. So again, the application here is mainly going to be on top of a roof, where they want something a little bit more significant than this, and also so that there may be applications where we need to go vertical. We need to go through the roof to get the water supply to a heated space so it doesn't freeze. Whereas with this is more of a vertical application. Or horizontal application. Okay, the MHY 60 on page 253 is basically the MHY 10 hydrant, but we changed the tailpiece. We We changed the tailpiece to have a vertical connection. And then the box is different as well, because our standard MHY 15 box has got this raised face to it. And you can imagine with the lip, if this was flush in the ground, those are trip hazards. So we make a different box for the MHY 60s, which is flat and smooth. We make it a nickel and cast. There'll be no driplet because it's going to be installed like so. And the door itself will be flush with the frame. That's what we would always use with an MHY 60, which is, again, a different product than this because we have a vertical tailpiece, not the side connection like so to meet the incoming water supply. These come in different lengths, or different bury depths, as we say. The difference between the 60 and the 61 is simply the hose connection. The 60 is a 3/4 male hose connection. The 61 is either 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches, or 2-inch hose connection for bigger hoses. Okay, page 254, we have post hydrants at the top and yard hydrants at the bottom. Very much like a roof hydrant. Get past that, please. The post hydrant, which is this, is typically used in rural applications where it's simply a post. It's sticking up under the ground. We have a hose connection here to put a hose to. There's a turn key. There's a key provided. We turn it on or off via that point there. The water connection is at the bottom. We have the drain port as well. So any water that's left in the line will drain down typically into the ground. Farming areas, any areas where we want to get water for whatever use. It doesn't look very pretty, but it's going to be in a rural area where that's typically not the issue. The other version of that family is the post, and the post hydrant is a lot like the MHY 58 roof hydrant, except it doesn't have the whole flange containment mechanism at the bottom because we're not trying to flash roofing membrane to it. Again, it's going to be buried in the ground with a pump action handle to get the water up and down, whereas with that you turn the key. Then we get into the MHY 90 series, which is page 255, 256. The most common of those is the MHY 92, which is a polished chrome model. Vacuum breaker, this is usually used underneath a sink or lavatory where a janitor or cleaning person may want to access water to clean the floor. It can be used inside of the building to provide water. It's not a non-freeze. So this needs to be completely inside a heated room. And we ship this with 4 different handles. We have a brown plastic wheel handle, clear plastic wheel handle, loose T-key, and a cast iron wheel. And any one of these will affix onto the base hydrant to give the installer whatever choice they prefer. And this really reduces selection or choices. It gives more selection with fewer choices because we've combined all the handles into one model. Then we provide this in either 1/2 or 3/4 inlet connection for the water supply. And then we provide it with either a polished chrome plated finish or a rough chrome plated finish. We do have rough bronze, but we're phasing that out, and we'll be offering rough chrome plated in lieu of the rough bronze to get down to 2 finishes, 2 inlet connections. That's 4 models with all 4 different handles with every one. So 4 models, polished chrome 1/2 3/4, rough chrome 1/2 3/4, all the handles in the box. That is our complete packet for the HY 9000 interior hydrant. Typically interior for this. Usually interior for the 3 and the 5. They can be exterior if we're in warm climate areas. And the 1000 is typically exterior going into the building, either without or with a hydrant box. So So thank you for your attention, and see you again soon.